Well, we were talking about using regular guitar with MIDI. One misconception is that a lot of people think you have to use a MIDI instrument like a keyboard or MIDI drum pad or MIDI guitar to use MIDI, but that's not true, and you know that because you're a drummer. So you don't have to use a drum machine to use MIDI. One of my favorite applications of MIDI is to play a standard guitar, but use MIDI-controlled signal processors.
Okay.
And what this does is it really simplifies life on stage because you don't have to lean over and hit buttons and do various things. And this also builds on what we were talking about with continuous controllers. The way I've got this setup done here, well, first of all, there's a program change foot switch. And what that does is that calls up different programs on the QuadraVerb. Then there's also a pedal which is hooked into the EPS and which then provides a MIDI output that goes to the QuadraVerb.
Okay.
Right now, this pedal is set up to produce controller number 4 messages. And I have several parameters in these patches controlled by controller number 4. Now here's one that doesn't use the control pedal, but it's just a patch with long echo. Now I can instantly switch to another patch just by hitting the program change foot switch. And as you can see, the LCD on the QuadraVerb changed, and so did the sound.
The echo's gone. Right.
Or you can go to like a big fuzz sound. And it's all just a foot switch press away.
And these are MIDI program changes?
Yeah, these are MIDI program changes that are being generated by the foot switch, being received by the QuadraVerb, and then changing the programs.
Okay.
Now a couple of these programs I've set up so that the control pedal does something too, like on this one here. There you can see I've got a lot of reverb.
Right.
I've set it up so that the reverb amount fades out as you move the pedal down, and the chorus fades in. So you can crossfade between a reverb and a chorus sound.
Okay.
Okay, now it's the same. Now the fuzz I have set up a little bit differently. What the pedal's doing here is it's changing the actual amount of echo as well as the total amount of feedback. So as you push the pedal down, you go from just a straight sound to one that is just loaded with a sea of echo. So here it is without the echo. And when you want to switch over to a lead, and there you have the echo, and then when it's time to go back to rhythm, you pull it back and...
Very simple.
Real simple, and a lot easier than the way it used to be when you have to hit all those different foot switches at one time, you know, turn on the compressor and the fuzz and the EQ and hope you got them right and you didn't miss one and they didn't turn the stage lights down.
Right.
You do embarrassing things. But actually it gets even better than this, because if you play to like a drum machine or a sequencer, what I do is I actually make all these program changes and controller changes programmed into the sequence. So that when I play, as long as the sequence is going, I don't have to even think about pressing any buttons or moving any pedals. I just play, and all the changes come in like clockwork, right where I programmed them.
If you have rhythm.
Or if you're following a sequencer. But the thing is, the sequencer takes care of providing that control information.
Right.
So like when it goes from the bridge to the chorus or something, you can just insert a program change there, and you have a brand new program. You know, go from a lead to a rhythm or something like that.
Right.
Meanwhile, while you're working on a solo, you can have the continuous controllers like fade in the amount of echo so that as you play your solo, as you get closer and closer to the big climax, as you move up the neck, then you're bringing in lots of echo and lots of feedback, and then cut right back down to the rhythm part again or change to a different program or all that. And again, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to do anything except play and sing. You don't have to think about which buttons to press. And that to me is like a very, very liberating aspect of MIDI. And you don't need a MIDI guitar, and you don't need a MIDI keyboard. You don't need any kind of MIDI controllers except for the continuous controller data that's happening here.
Okay.
Now I should add too that although I'm using the EPS to translate the pedal motion into controller data, there are controller pedals out on the market whose sole purpose is to sit there, have a MIDI out, and produce continuous controller data.
Okay.
So you don't have to use the keyboard, but it's just real convenient. And since I use that on stage too, it's just a nice way to work.
Right.
So that takes care of using MIDI with non-MIDI instruments.
Very simple.
I think from here, let's move on to using a MIDI guitar. and using some of the controllers on that to actually vary parameters in real time.
Okay.